Well, we are following some breaking news. In this case, we do have a verdict in the trial of an Idaho man accused of killing his first wife and his second wife's two children back in 2019.
Chad Daybell has pleaded not guilty to murder and conspiracy charges. Daybell is facing 9 charges, including 3 counts of murder in the first degree and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. Jury deliberations began yesterday, just yesterday afternoon, in fact. The prosecution claims the murders were fueled by, quote, sex, money, and power, along with spiritual beliefs. Lori Vallow Daybell was convicted of murder, conspiracy, and theft last July. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
And we are going to continue to monitor that situation where any moment now you can see right there the courthouse in Boise, Idaho, where the jury will disclose the verdict that they have reached and hand that verdict up to the judge. In the meantime, we have team coverage. Both Jessica Levinson, a CBS News legal contributor and Loyola School law professor, as well as CBS News correspondent Carter Evans, who is joining us from Los Angeles. Do we have word from the courtroom yet? All right, we're going to listen in there first.
And the court at this time is going to instruct the jurors to please be brought into the courtroom. That will include our alternate jurors as well to be seated. And then I will have the marshal get the verdict form from the jury once they return to the courtroom. So if they can come in at this time, we'll have them brought in.
All right, please.
While we are waiting for the jury to make their way into that courtroom there, I'm going to ask a question of our Carter Evans, who's following the case for us. So, Carter, remind our viewers, in the case of Chad Daybell, the charges that he faces and the seriousness of the possibility of his conviction.
Right. So he's facing triple murder charges and also charges of conspiracy to commit murder. And then there are also some insurance fraud charges relating to an insurance claim filed after Chad Daybell's wife's death. So all of that is being considered right now. You're looking at the courtroom live. They're going through some procedural things right now. They're getting ready to bring the jury in to read the verdict. Now, the jury got this case yesterday afternoon. They came back at 8 o'clock this morning. They deliberated for a few more hours, and they said they had a verdict in general that is not recognized as a great sign for the defense in a case like this. But we will see in just a minute. Going back here, he is accused of not just the murders of Lori Vallow Daybell's children, but also the murder of his wife. Now, his wife, they originally ruled her death natural causes, but her body was later exhumed after it was believed that he might be involved in Vallow's children's deaths, and they re-examined her, and they say that she died of asphyxiation. And basically, they are calling this a homicide right now. So that is where the third homicide charge comes in here. That's his wife. Again, all of the bodies found on his property, but there is no direct evidence linking him to any of these crimes.
And we see Chad Daybell there, it looks like in a yellow tie, sitting next to his defense attorney, waiting to find out if his sentence is returned as guilty as it was for Lori Vallow Daybell, his most recent wife, whose 2 children, JJ and Tylee, were found dead on his property, as well as, in this case, a question about whether he also killed his previous wife. Of course, he married Lori Vallow Daybell just 2 months after his wife passed away, whether by natural or unnatural causes, in October 2019. We're going to listen to the courtroom now to see what verdict is being returned.
Thank you. All right, the court has reviewed the verdict form. I'll note that all counts have been properly marked, as well as the Verdict form's been properly dated and signed by the foreperson. The next step then is Mr. Daybell, if you and counsel would please rise, I'm going to have the clerk read the verdict.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho and for the County of Fremont. State of Idaho plaintiff versus Chad Guy Daybell defendant, case number CR 22211623. Verdict. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for our verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. In regards to count 1 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception? Guilty. Question number 2. In regards to count 2 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan? Guilty. Question number 3. In regards to count 3 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception? Guilty. Question number 4. In regards to count 4 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Guilty. Question number 5. In regards to count 5 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tamara Tammy Daybell? Guilty. Question number 6. In regards to count 6 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tamara Tammy Daybell? Guilty. Question number 7. In regards to count 7 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of insurance fraud? Guilty. Question number 8. In regards to count 8 of the amended indictment, in regards to count 9 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of insurance fraud? Guilty. Dated this 30th day of May, 2024, and signed by the presiding juror.
All right, Madam Clerk, thank you for reading the verdict. At this time, I'm just going to collectively ask the jurors, all of you, is this in fact your unanimous verdict on each of those counts? Very well. At this time, I'm going to inquire if the parties wish to have the jury polled. Does the state wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Does the defense, Mr. Pryor, wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very well, then. I'm going to direct the clerk to record the verdict. At this time, then, this does conclude the guilt phase of this trial. Because the defendant has been convicted on counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, the state has filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty, and so a second phase of this trial, called the sentencing phase, will be taking place next. We're going to take a recess at this time for approximately an hour. We will come back on the record and begin with the start of that sentencing phase of the trial. I would like to remind everyone that this courtroom conduct order is still in application throughout these proceedings. Thank you all for complying with that. We are going to take that recess at this time. Mr. Daybell is to remain in custody at this time for the commencement of the sentencing phase. And with that, thank you all, and we will be in recess.
All right, please.
We want to bring in Jessica Levinson now for her legal analyst. She's a CBS News legal contributor and a Loyola Law School professor. So here we have all guilty counts. Chad Daybell, emotionless as he was listening. What are your takeaways, Jessica?
So I think Carter was exactly right. If you see that there's a verdict that comes back within about 24, 36 hours, that is going to be a conviction. I think one of the things people will be saying today is, but there wasn't direct evidence. And this is a little bit of a learning opportunity for all of us that there isn't always direct evidence when it comes to these convictions. I think ultimately the prosecution told a much more compelling story. Ultimately, the jurors often, in this case, believed that Chad Daybell was a bad actor. And so even though they didn't have that so-called smoking gun, I think the prosecution told a story that just made much more sense. And let's remember that Lori Daybell was already convicted of these crimes, but that doesn't mean that she acted alone. And that's what the jury found today. Now we know, because the judge said we're coming back, that there will be a discussion of sentencing in just 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So we still don't know what the fate of Chad Daybell will be.
So, Jessica, I want to follow up on that because I was surprised that they said we're going to take this short recess and then we're going to come back and discuss whether the sentencing phase. The judge also made the point that the notice of intent by the prosecution was to seek the death penalty in this instance. And just as a reminder for our viewers, in the case of the two children, JJ and Tylee, they were last seen in September of 2019. Then Lori and Chad got married. They went on a honeymoon. During this whole time, people are asking, where are these children? Their bodies weren't found until June of 2020. This was a heinous event, a heinous murder. How likely is it then, Jessica, that when the judge comes back, that he is in fact going to impose a death penalty sentence?
Well, it is certainly possible. And I think you were right to outline the facts, because it doesn't only show, I think, the story that the prosecution was able to tell, which is what is going on here. Your second wife's children are nowhere to be seen, and you're out honeymooning, you're out living your life. How can this possibly be? And when it comes to a death eligible case, it is difficult to predict, but we have somebody who's now been convicted of triple murder. So if you think about a death eligible case, oftentimes, unfortunately, children are involved. Oftentimes there's more than one murder, and we have both of those things present today.
Carter, as we think about this, and Lana had mentioned there are really heinous crimes, it's an emotional case also. I mean, there are many family members who have been fighting for justice for these victims. Talk to us about the significance of this moment here with a guilty verdict.
Well, I think that this is going to give people some closure. A lot of people have been following this trial, especially a lot of people were very concerned for a very long time when these kids were missing. Of course, it certainly has impacted their family as well. And Lori Daybell is not done with her court battles yet. She's still got to face some charges in Arizona for all of this. So this is still not quite over. But it does bring some closure. And I guess the penalty phase will really determine exactly where we're going here. I think Jessica Levinson put it succinctly. We've got 3 murders that he was convicted of here, premeditated murders. 2 of them were children, all of them on his property. These are heinous, heinous crimes. And you think about the religious undertones, the godlike behavior that was described in the trial. All of this is going to come into play here in the sentencing. And also, is there any remorse?
Right.
You don't really see that on his face there in the courtroom. He was pretty unemotional. So I'm interested to see his reaction to all this.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Lori Daybell also facing charges in Arizona. Her earlier husband, her prior husband to Chad Daybell, Charles Vallow, was shot and killed by her brother, Alex, when they were all at the house together. Yeah. Remind our viewers also about that aspect of this bizarre case.
Well, this case is so confusing and has so many details and so many points that, yeah, that one kind of gets left behind. But yes, Lori Vallow's first husband was shot and killed by her brother. And the reason he's not on trial right now is because he died. But he died of natural causes. So that at least has been resolved to some degree, at least who killed her husband there. But at whose direction?
Yeah.
That's a question that's still looming.
So, Jessica, oftentimes when we have decisions by juries, you and I discuss the next steps in terms of appeals, et cetera. Is that even a likely possibility in this? Does that make sense given how much just overwhelming evidence there was and the particularly distasteful nature of these deaths?
Well, I will say the legal decision as to whether or not to appeal doesn't have anything to do with how heinous the crimes are.
Yeah.
It has to do with whether or not the defense attorney thinks there's some opening to say, we think that there's a reason to overturn the verdict. I think the thing to remember, and in part because we're talking so much about appeals with respect to another criminal case
Right.
happening in New York, is that appeals are not often successful. So we might have a conversation about that. But at this point, there's nothing that sticks out as a major issue that could come up on appeal. Again, an appellate brief will probably be filed. It will be reviewed, but that doesn't mean that anything will change from the verdict that we saw today.
And Jessica, one more question for you. Since we're going to hear from the judge in just about 40 minutes, 45 minutes time with a likely sentence, possibly including the death penalty, does the judge already likely have a sentence in mind when the jury comes back with their verdict?
This is a judge who oversaw the case. He knows what the mitigating factors are. He knows what the aggravating factors are. The aggravating factors, unfortunately, almost go without saying in a case that is this heinous and this tragic, where you have dead children. And so I think oftentimes a judge does know where he or she is going to go in a case like this. But it's interesting to see, given the time on both sides, that he did want some time, but not a lot of time. It will be interesting to see what comes next in terms of that liability phase, so to speak, in terms of the penalty phase, excuse me.
And we will be watching to see what that is. And of course, CBS News 24/7 will bring that information to all of you out there in a case that really captivated the nation's attention, particularly during that time period when those kids were missing. Carter Evans, Jessica Levinson, thank you.